Hey, so for the past 4 to 5 months, I have been learning JavaScript and I decided what better way to test myself than making a game. For the past months, I have been learning HTML, CSS, and some JavaScript. I had made some basic projects and a game, but let's be honest, it was pretty bad. Yeah, it was really bad, just downright bad. So it was my first game. I didn't had much experience making games in JavaScript. Till now, I had been making games in either Unity or Godot. Now, I could definitely use a library such as Phaser to make games in JavaScript, but I don't know Phaser very well, and I thought it would be easier to make games just in vanilla JavaScript. But obviously, it won't be just vanilla JavaScript. We would need a physics system or a physics engine to do the calculation, such as collision detection and some movement. We could do the movement without a physics engine, but the collision would definitely require some sort of physics system, and it would be too hard to make one from scratch. That's why I decided to use matter.js. With the libraries decided, let's move on to the project. At first, I decided to go with the OOP approach, object oriented programming. So I grouped mostly all of my data into classes and organized them. I created one class called gamed and stored all of the stuff, and then created small classes such as spawner, player to store their components. This approach wasn't that big of a problem right now, but later on in the video, it will be quite a big problem. I added player, enemies, bullet, and a lot of things, different types of bullets. But as the complexity increased, tons and tons of new problems arose. Most bullets have different types of collision shapes. I tried to minimize the problem using inheritance as much as I can, but the project was just getting messier and messier. Some design choices were poor, so I decided to scrap it all and rebuild it from scratch with ECS. For those who don't know what ECS is, it's basically a way to code which is different than object-oriented programming. In ECS, you basically store data in components. So there would be a component for position to store the position of objects, a component for rotation, direction, and some components would require movement, so you can define a movement component for them, a speed component, etc. Check out about it more in detail. It basically provides a easier way to break down stuff into parts and increases reusability. Luckily, I found a free JavaScript library called Checks, which provides an easy way to implement ECS in your project. Doing the documentation and some help from other sources, I was able to make this simple game. On the way, I also learned about Node and how to use libraries and a ton of other things which are extremely useful. Because of this project, I was able to understand how to use this in the actual game without making a mess. Otherwise, it would have been a lot more difficult to implement it and change something later in the actual project. So after going from a noob to not a noob, I finally decided to give the project another go, and it was way too easy. Who am I kidding? There is nothing easy in programming, but this time the progress was quite fast. There were some problems here and there, but I was able to recreate most of that stuff in ECS, and it feels a lot cleaner this way. Of course, there were times where I have to make some workarounds, and sometimes I messed up quite a lot, so I had to go back and redo that. I even encountered some new bugs, but I managed to fix them. So the approach I use is both a mix of ECS and OOP. Most of the object related stuff you see here, such as game play, these bullets, player. The one thing I like about this approach is it's pretty easy and gives you the best of both worlds. One, it gives you the flexibility to create stuff through composition. Two, you can have a mixture of classes in between, such as let's say a player class, as there would only be one player, a player class to handle some more stuff or operate on that ECS. So now you must be wondering, what is this game about? Don't worry, I got you. It is basically just a classic space shooter game like any other space shooter, but there is a slight twist. After a while, the screen basically rotates, forcing you to change direction, and the enemies also change direction. Basically, the whole world flips. There are still some bugs hidden. Some things are not working for I don't know why, but I will see and make sure they are fixed.
The next day.
And after a while, I got it to switch bullets, and now we can switch bullets. I also managed to fix some bugs on the way, so that's good. I think 4 bullets are enough for this game. We don't need more bullets. We could add them later. Had the sprites from my previous game, so I just imported them in. Now we have 4 fires. I also added some power-ups and other things.
The next day.
Technically, it's the next day. I added this nice health bar here. And basic combat mechanics are almost done. As you can see, I can take damage upon colliding with enemies, and when the bullets collide with enemies, the enemies take damage as well. I also added this nice power up right here. It increases the firing rate or the number of bullets. And the next mechanic is inspired from a game I used to play long ago. It's a space shooter game called Chicken Invaders. For those who don't know, it was pretty popular back in the day. I think it's still popular. So there was this mechanic in the game that if you keep firing, as you can see, you will eventually overheat, and for a certain time you can't fire. So basically you have to manage your fire, and you can just spam it. So taking some inspiration from that, I decided I could also add a similar mechanic to my game. So I added another bar for the energy. So when I fire, the energy drops, and when I don't, the energy slowly recovers. How it currently looks, there are still some things I need to add to make it look more better, but I think it's pretty good already. As you can see, now the energy recovers, and I can't fire till it fully recovers. I still need to play around with the values a bit. Okay, so taking a look at this, most of the big stuff is pretty much done. Now we need UI. So I decided to start with the pause or settings button first. So I went ahead and decided to create a button class. During this, quite a few tricky issues popped up. I have solved some of them, and some are still like that, so I decided to just leave them out for now. And the button works right now. It doesn't do anything, but it works kind of. And now that is out of the way, so it's time to create a pause function for the button. So after some working, I created this panel class. It basically currently just draws a rectangle of a color with a certain width and height, and it's just an empty rectangle. Then I used my button class to make the game pause on the button click and also show the panel. As you can see here, I made this pause function to pause the game and also pause the ECS or all the systems that the ECS is running. And now if we test it, okay, it works fine. As you can see, the game is paused. It does not pause the UI or other clicks, but basically the main game is paused. There was one issue I ran into. The problem is that most of the code in this UI is being repeated. I mean, some of it is being repeated, such as position, width, height, etc. Our button and panel class share a lot of similar code. Now again, I could fix it using some inheritance, but since I did everything in ECS, I thought it would be better to redo it in ECS. So I decided to basically refactor the code in ECS. So after 2 to 3 hours, I was able to make the same thing in ECS. As you might not be able to see it right now, but the health bar and this energy bar are both ECS right now. Not only this, I did a couple of refactors on my way here. I even practiced some things to test them out before applying them in the main project, which honestly made the code a lot better and more readable. I try to refactor my code from time to time. The one thing about this approach is this: it makes the code base readable and manageable. So after doing that, I still had to make the UI ECS. I am still kinda experimenting with it and look taking inspiration from other engines who made this. I am still trying to figure out direction on how should I approach this, but I'm sure I will figure it out. And I think we should end the video right here. I honestly thought I would be able to make more progress in this one video, but honestly game dev takes a lot more time than you think, and there are still a ton of features that need to be polished. There are still some plans such as an enemy spawner. The game is still unfinished, so I guess we will cover that in the next part. I think it will be a 2-part devlog, with the next part being the last one, so stay tuned to it, and I shall see you in the next video. Goodbye.